Once upon a time, there was a little boy called Howard who loved writing stories.
Little Howard dreamed of being a writer, and so he sat and wrote every night. But everything he wrote was fucking shite, yeah. Wubba-dubba-doo, wubba-dubba-doo. Worst writer in the world, worst writer in the world, worst writer in the world, worst writer in the world. He's a stupid, suck-ass, rubbish writer.
Welcome to the worst writer in the world, and it is episode 2 of our retelling and deep analysis of famous book that everyone's definitely heard of and loves and remembers from their childhood, Willie the Squowse by Ted Allen.
Fantastic stuff.
And what happened in the story last week, Howard? Do you remember what happened? What has happened so far?
Yeah, there's this guy who's got this Squowse, and the Squowse.
Yeah, there's a guy who's got a squowse. What is a squowse?
It's his mother. Well, this particular Squowse, his mother was a squirrel and his father was a mouse, and so he is a Squowse.
And so, yeah, last week we met two families, one with more money than they need and one with not enough money.
Yeah.
And the one with more money than they need decided that they don't trust banks, so they're shoving it in the wall.
Yes.
And the one without enough money are awful and beat their children and stuff. It's really depressing. And yeah, just before, at the end of last episode, Willie the Squowse went for a little adventure in the wall, went to see what's going on in the wall, and then unfortunately got knocked out.
Yeah.
And that's where we left him, unconscious in the wall. All right, so chapter 3. Joe wakes up in the morning and can't find Willie the Squowse.
And immediately.
Yeah, he spends about 3 seconds looking for him, and then gives up.
Yeah.
His best mate Willie's like, oh well, he's not in this room or under this one blanket. He's probably gone to live with all the other Squouses. That's what he's like. Oh, he's probably all those other famous Squouses. He's probably gone to live with them. And so Joe immediately fucks off to become a normal elephant trainer.
I can't find him. I better move house.
Yeah.
Does he go to become an elephant trainer?
Yeah, he becomes an elephant trainer. Yeah, absolutely. This must be where you got the idea for
It must be because
Moneymaker. It's Moneymaker, isn't it? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, listener, then you've got to listen to Time Pig, which is available from manbycow.com/timepig probably.
Yeah.
It's on Patreon for free.
Yeah, because my understanding is that if you train Squouses, you get no money. But then Pete tells him, if you train an elephant, you're going to be rich. So that's why I think that James, the ordinary elephant teacher in Moneymaker, has got so much money.
Yeah, that he keeps in his... And also, you've learned from this book that people don't trust banks. They put money in weird places. So you're like, well, probably put it in a shoebox under my bed.
Yeah.
Hope no one nicks it.
I probably did. Yeah, there's a lot of connections because it's all about money.
No, I mean, you were heavily influenced by this book because you used to read it 3 times a day, so it's understandable. So chapter 4, Willie wakes up the next day, goes back out of the hole, and immediately gets attacked by a whole family.
And that's whole with a W in front of it, not a whole family.
Yeah, W hole. No, yeah, not a family. I mean, it is. It's a family that lives on the other side of a hole, but they're not. That doesn't define them. What defines them is being poor and violent. Yeah. So amid much screaming from a woman and some children, a man repeatedly tries to beat Willie to death with an iron bar and almost succeeds. But Willie escapes back into the wall, and the woman tells the man that he's useless because he couldn't even murder a Squowse.
Yeah.
Willie immediately works out exactly what happened and is correct about every detail. Yeah, he's like, oh, well, Joe probably woke up. I wasn't there. He decided I'd gone to live with other Squouses and then went off to become an elephant trainer, I expect. All right, chapter 5. I'm going to read you an extract again. Willie lay huddled a long while. Nothing like this had ever happened to him before. Now, he's not talking about being abandoned by Joe at that point. He's talking about being attacked by a family. Because, there had been the typical attitude people had when they saw him, but he had become used to it and forgiven it because he knew it was more out of ignorance than meanness. But no one had ever tried to kill him before. This was a very sad experience. Most people didn't like mice or Squowse. He knew that. But he had never been attacked before. He had heard about others of his kind being hunted and killed.
To almost extinction, because he's the only one left, right? Yeah.
Well, that's why he's heard about it. It makes sense that he's very aware of every other member of his species being hunted and killed. But until that moment, he had felt that they had brought it on themselves.
Whoa!
Now he felt otherwise. No one is safe any longer, he thought sadly. So, I tell you what I'm reading from this. Willie the Squowse has a very conservative mindset, right? He has no sympathy for others. Like, he's like, but until it happens to him, he only understands other people's suffering when exactly the same thing happens to him. Like, poor people just aren't trying hard enough and deserve no help from the government. Oh no, now I'm poor, I realise how foolish I was and think the government should help me. Anyway. So Willie goes looking for food, and he finds another hole in the wall, but that leads to the Pickering's kitchen. And he steals some nuts and cheese. Then Willie the Squowse decides to just live in the wall, because it has everything he needs, because he can go to the Pickering's house every day and nick what he needs. He'd steal food.
Yeah.
Chapter 6. Weeks pass. Willie watches the two households. The Pickerings live a happy life, and Willie continues to steal food. And the other family, who are, by the way, called the Smith family, and the father is called John Smith.
Amazing.
And so I've always suspected that the reason you like the name John so much was because of Doctor Who calling himself John Smith. But now I think maybe it's Willie the Squowse, and that your favourite character in this book was John Smith, the violent, abusive father character.
It's the only reason I like Doctor Who, because he used to call himself John Smith. I assumed he was well into Willie the Squowse.
Anyway, the Smiths are miserable and sick. The father is physically abusive to his family as well, not just to Willie the Squowse, to his family, and lazy. So the mother has to look after the screaming kids who are awake all night because of nightmares, because of the abuse they're suffering. This is what the text says, right? Yeah. And she also has to keep the house and take in washing to make money because John Smith is fucking useless. So basically the mother does everything. The kids can't sleep, and John Smith is an abusive drunk. Very unfortunate people, thought Willie, who, by this time, had begun to pity them a little. So he's learning a little bit of sympathy, which is nice. Chapter 7. Willie's hanging out in the wall when he smells cheese.
Willie's hanging out of the walls. What is this? Suddenly gone a bit dirty.
No, in the wall. When Willie smells cheese.
I'm not sucking that, I'm sorry.
Willie the Squowse smells some cheese, and he realises that the Scum House, and that's what the text calls it, I'm not calling it the Scum House, that is in the text, it's the Scum House, right, is trying to tempt him out so they can murder him. But he can't resist the smell. He's fighting against his own instinct. He can't stop himself. Even though he knows he's going to get murdered, he's got to go and get that cheese. Yeah. So he comes up with an amazing solution. He's got to plug the hole. He's got to plug the hole so he can't smell the cheese anymore. Yeah. And what is he going to plug the hole with? Well, what about one of these bits of paper that I'm completely surrounded by? One of these worthless pieces of paper with pictures of an old lady on them. Or at this point, probably a picture of a not that old lady on them. So he grabs a £10 note and plugs the hole with it. On the other side of the hole, Mary Smith pulls the £10 out and immediately decides that God did it. Oh, look, God gave me a £10 note. And then her idea is confirmed when a second £10 note fills the hole. And the text says, she prayed. She asked forgiveness for all her sins. She promised to be a good woman, a good wife, a good mother. That's all a woman can be, a good woman, which means a good wife and a good mother.
Seems like she was kind of already doing that. It was the dad that was the terrible one, wasn't it? She's looking after the kids and... Yes,
absolutely. But also she's been beaten into submission, like literally and figuratively, to believe that it's all her fault, right? She's the responsibility of all of this is put onto her. She promised to live all the days of her life in righteousness. She promised to be patient, humble, forgiving, loving, unselfish, brave, noble, and a pal and a chum to her children, who, by the way, a couple of minutes earlier she was beating. Like, she absolutely hit her children just a couple of minutes before this. So she's decided that actually she's going to be a friend to her children instead of violent.
Well, she'd always assumed that they deserved it before, but now she's like learned that maybe, it's not their fault.
But how did the money teach her that? How did getting £20 teach her that? Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. But then when she tries it a third time, it doesn't work. Because Willie, in the wall, Willie didn't have time to go and get another note, so he used a bit of plaster instead. So Mrs. Smith immediately decides that she's only allowed £20 a day from God and resolves to try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
The next day, she tries to recreate the conditions exactly. And this is what the book says. She tried to do everything exactly as she had done it the day before. She sat down in the same place, put the cheese down in the same spot, got up to get the mousetrap, even walked to the front room and slapped all her children. So that promise she made to God didn't last very long, did it? She's like, I better do everything I did the same as yesterday. Hang on, I was beating my children just before that happened. I better do that again.
Well, we know what God's like. God's well into punishment, so...
Yeah.
Well, I hope that's how she gets the money from now on. Like, she does that every time she gets £20, does she?
Fortunately, no, because it doesn't work. Because Willie is currently in the Pickering's house stealing their food and can't smell the cheese. But then Mrs. Smith realises that she's forgotten one thing. She's sitting on the wrong chair. And, at the exact moment that Willie goes home, she gets the chair, tries again, and this time it works because he's back, cementing her already excessively strong superstitions and really focusing them on that chair. Fortunately, thank goodness, she decides it wasn't the kids, it wasn't hitting my kids that got me that 20 quid.
Yeah.
It was sitting on this old broken chair.
Sliding holes. If Willie the Squowse had only come back like 30 seconds earlier, then that mum would be slapping those kids like 20 times a day to squeeze money out of that hole.
Wow.
Every time I slap my child, I get £10.
Oh, God.
I wonder what happens if I kill one of them. Let's find out.
£50, wow. Okay. So then she shows her abusive, drunk, lazy husband, and they get very excited because they're now rich, and all they have to do is sit in a specific chair and wave a bit of cheese at a hole twice a day. And this is what the text says. "The Lord works in mysterious ways," said his wife. "It is not for us to question." "Maybe we should tear down the wall and see what's behind it," said Mr. Smith. "If you do, you'll find nothing, and the miracle will stop. This is how we must do it."
I mean, she knows that because, when they pulled that brick out previously in Rapunzel, there was nothing there either, was there? So...
Yeah. I've got experience, and I tell you what, that kid was not waving at me again earlier. I'm really upset about that as well. This is how we must do it. The old chair, a piece of cheese twice a day, no more, no less. If we're too greedy, we'll get nothing, his wife cautioned. And so each day he plugged the hole twice. And each day Mr. and Mrs. Smith went through their ritual. And each week Humphrey cashed the cheque and Henrietta kept stuffing the 20 £10 notes into the hole of her kitchen wall. And that was how the wall Willie lived in became a sort of bank and Willie a sort of banker.
Sort of bank.
Now, dear Ted Allen, you do not know what a bank is.
Yeah. And that's how the wall became a sort of wall stuffed with a load of money.
And how Willie the Squowse became a kind of squouse that kept stealing money and shoving it out of a hole. Chapter 8. The weeks thus passed into eventful months into significant years, until some 5 epic-filled years had passed.
Wow.
The Smith children were no longer dirty. They were neatly dressed, clean and well-mannered in the presence of strangers. Their noses didn't run, and they stopped catching colds. Lucille, that's the oldest child, became a pretty, if affected, young woman of 19 and went to college.
And these terrible people who were previously terrible, who got money, suddenly became really, really nice and didn't just have all the money and use
That's
it to abuse.
absolutely part of the moral of the story, that if you're poor, you're awful, but if you're rich, This is where the message gets muddied. Like before, I felt like there was maybe something positive in this, but at this point, it really starts to turn around in a very disturbing direction. Yeah. The Smiths now owned their house and had it completely renovated. There was new furniture, a grand piano on which all the children practiced, a telephone with 2 extensions, a double-sized refrigerator, a combination hi-fi set, an electric washing machine and dryer, a maid and 2 cars. Isn't it weird how there's a maid in there, in that list of appliances? Right? There is a human, like she's one of the things they bought.
Probably bought him off Pete. We know what he deals in human trafficking, right?
Yeah. And he's familiar with this house because he used to live there.
Yeah.
I tell you what, the change of ownership in that house happens very quickly. It's amazing. There's 2 blokes sitting in it, very unclear who they are or why they're there. And then the next day, it's got a family living in it. It must be rented. Mr. Smith still drank as much as ever, but no one seemed to mind anymore. All the neighbours took off their hats now when he passed. Whenever something happened anywhere in the world, they would ask him to explain it. And Mr. Smith always had explanations.
They punched him.
And all the neighbours remarked at how Mr. Smith had changed from a loutish drunkard into a prosperous, charming and witty bon vivant. Now, I love that paragraph. I love the fact that he's the same, but now people like him because he is rich.
Yeah.
But my favourite line is definitely, whenever something happened anywhere in the world, they would ask him to explain it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is that? Go and ask apparently there's a war happening in the Middle East. Can you go and ask Mr. Smith, the rich drunk, to explain who's right, please?
Yeah.
Apparently he's on the aggressor's side because he's rich. What a surprise. So yeah, the Smiths become mega rich, and that makes them happy and good.
The end.
Well, not
beautiful
quite.
Story.
Not quite. So we're on chapter 9, and I've made in my notes. I've written just read chapter 9. And then I noticed the next one, chapter 10, says just read chapter 10. So I guess I'm reading 2 chapters to you now.
Beautiful.
All right, chapter 9. You've probably been wondering whatever happened to Willie's former friend Joe.
No, we know what happened to him. He became a really rich elephant trainer and changed his name to James. Yeah, carry on.
Well, I have hesitated telling you because this part of the story is not very pleasant.
Oh.
But I'd better get to it now. Soon after leaving Willie, Joe got everything in his life he ever thought he wanted.
Oh.
He trained a cow elephant using hypnosis to wear petticoats and dance the can-can, while playing a trumpet with her trunk.
Wow.
None of which the elephant enjoyed doing. The act proved to be a howling box-office success, and soon Joe owned a large troupe of half-dazed dancing and trumpet-blowing elephants who were featured in a Hollywood musical film purporting to dramatise the love life of elephants. A musical about the love life of elephants sounds good to me.
Yep.
It was a travesty, both of love and of elephants. Brilliant. The film earned its producers a fortune, and Joe became a rich and powerful man in show business.
Okay, so he becomes good and nice.
Yeah, well, no, because but Joe had enough conscience to be ashamed of himself. Because it's not okay to earn money by exploiting elephants, but it is okay to earn money by basically getting a mouse to steal it off some old people, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, Joe had enough conscience to be ashamed of himself because the once proud elephants were humiliated by their act. He got no satisfaction from the money which came from exploiting unhappy cow elephants hypnotised into wearing petticoats, kicking up their legs and blowing trumpets.
I mean, don't do it then. I mean, like, he's the one that thought of it. And how does he know they don't like it? Are they telling him? Are they complaining? If they've unionised, what's going on with these elephants?
They cry a lot. They make sad parping noises.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like they've got it good, to be honest.
Hypnotised to dance in petticoats.
They're doing a fucking job, aren't they? I mean, like they probably get really well fed.
Elephants, they shouldn't need a job.
Hey, if they lived in their natural habitat, they get shot and have their horns taken. So I mean, they should be happy.
So okay. Well, it could be worse, couldn't it? Could be worse because I could be shooting them, and I'm not shooting them, and so they should be happy that I'm not shooting them.
Yeah, good point. Very well made.
He gradually realised that from the time he had left his friend, Willie, he had not experienced one true moment of joy in his work or in his personal relations. Basically, he hasn't been happy since he left his Willie behind. That's what we're learning here. He could find neither a male nor a female companion who was amenable and responsive to him, so he had no friends.
But I mean, he's bisexual. That's pretty progressive characterization there.
It's like he's Squowse sexual, but he's trying out a bit of pansexuality. He's like, well, I'll try everything, but in the end, he can only get it off with a Squowse.
Yeah, because he likes that Squowse going up his hole. That's what
he's looking for a friend.
Because yes, Willie the Squowse used to go up his bumhole and bring out a tenner. It's like, who put that in there? Because the picklings have been shoving it in his mouth while he was asleep.
The old couple, yeah. This state of affairs could only lead in one direction, downwards.
Mm-hmm.
He became addicted to alcohol, besotting his brain, so he wouldn't have to think about anything and would be able to forget Willie, the best friend he'd ever had. Mm-hmm. He became the easy victim of a gang of unscrupulous businessmen who stole his elephants and then all his money and his silver toothpick and his house. No, they stole his elephants and then all his money in shady business undertakings. When last heard of, he was slithering fast down the road to ruin, to loneliness, starvation and painful isolation. Mm-hmm. We shall have to leave him in this sad state for the moment and return to the Smiths and the Pickerings. All right, now chapter 10. Get ready for this one. This is where it gets a bit disturbing. The college Lucille Smith attended, she's the kid who grew up to be pretty because she had lots of work done.
Yeah.
The college Lucille Smith attended was the same college, naturally, that Professor Dick Pickering taught at.
Oh.
Naturally, they fell in love.
Naturally, they did.
Naturally, a college professor fell in love with his 19-year-old student. And naturally, when he proposed, she accepted. And naturally, he lost his job and went to prison. Anyway, so Squire Dick Pickering marries Lucille Smith.
It's only really Jimmy Olsen creepy though if he met her when she was 14 because he used to visit his parents and they met and she used to kind of come round to the house and smudge up his lens.
Either way, even if the first time he met her was when she was 19 and his student, I feel like that's still. I mean, obviously it's worse if you.
Yeah, but she's had a lot of work done, Rufus. You've got to remember
even
that.
So, it's very, very unprofessional. He shouldn't be marrying his students.
Yeah, but she had a lot of work done, so she probably looks like a 40-year-old. Because you know what plastic surgery does to people? They think it makes them look younger, but it has the complete opposite effect. And he's like, "What's this 40-year-old woman doing in my class? She's quite hot."
I'll marry her. I'll marry her.
Wait, what? You're the 14-year-old from next door? Oh, fuck.
Lucille brought Richard home to meet her family. He liked the Smiths and the Smiths liked him, so I guess they haven't met before. "It's time there was a professor in the family," said Mrs. Smith. Mm-hmm. Richard brought Lucille to meet his parents, and Henrietta and Humphrey approved the instant they learned she was the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the land.
They're next door neighbours.
Yeah.
Or have they moved now?
No, neither. No, it's very specific that neither of them move because they don't want to move because of their money hole.
Right.
Their kids want to, but they don't because of the money hole.
Right, but that means so they're still living in a tiny house then because you can't have an extension because there's another house on the back of theirs.
Yeah.
It's like normally you just build backwards, go up, go down, but you can't.
No, they own other properties, but they still live in their house. Although I don't.
So maybe the kids don't live there because there's no room for them.
Anyway, so they're happy because she's the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the land, who are wealthy because of their wall money.
Yeah.
"She's a complete dear," said Henrietta. Mm-hmm. "She is that," said Humphrey. Mm-hmm. Lucille told Richard how wonderful she thought his parents were. Richard's got to have a voice now. Richard Dick Pickling said, "Yes." Richard Dick Pickling said, "Yes, they have something I've always admired. It came rather late in their years, but they've had it ever since. a love for people, a sense of belonging to a good world, a patient and wise understanding of human weakness.
Okay.
And Lucille says, my parents have that too, Lucille said thoughtfully. Some people have it, Richard said, and some people don't. Whatever that chapter means. Who knows?
That means that if you've got lots of money, then you understand people and are nice.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, especially because Richard says they only developed it later in their years when they got rich.
Yeah.
You are the scum house, aren't you? Because you live in Muswell Hill, which is super rich, and you're like the only scum house in terraces. You've got surely you've got rich people on either side.
I've got picklings either side of me, yeah.
And the problem is they're not sticking money in the wall, or maybe they are. Maybe your problem is you haven't got a squouse, but you haven't drilled into your walls and pulled the money out yet. I'd get drilling. I mean, you love drilling,
but I mean,
right?
you know, that's the past. The present is more about trying to log into their Wi-Fi and figure out their codes and then transfer their money to my bank. I suppose I could try that.
I mean, you say that, but that's criminal. Drilling holes in your wall and pulling the money out isn't criminal. You're allowed to do that.
Okay, we're going to have to drill all the way through and go into their house. Is that not criminal?
Then that's when it becomes criminal, yeah. You see, the good thing, what the Smith family have going on is plausible deniability, because they're not committing a crime, but Willie the Squowse is. So they can be all like, well, a Squowse gave us money. Surely that's not illegal. And we even apparently, like, the Squowse was paying tax as well. So come on.
Yeah.
Chapter 11. The stockbroker sends the last check.
Wow.
The day came when a letter arrived from the stockbroker telling Henrietta and Humphrey that the enclosed cheque was the last one, that the stocks were of no value any longer, and that he was happy to have served them all this time. You're right, this is not how stocks work at all.
I know. I mean...
Your shares are no longer worth anything, so I've sent you £200.
Yeah.
Hang on, what? Pardon?
Where did the £200 come from?
No, you're right. He just decided that after 5 years, he maybe he had all those billions of pounds that he made out of their shares, but he was also very greedy and spent it all. So he's like, okay, here's your last 200. I'm stopping now because I've run out of money myself.
The thing is, like, in all honesty, if you had a share that would pay a dividend every week of £200, the shares themselves would have been worth a fucking fortune. So you probably would have said to your stockbroker, can you sell my shares, please? And I'll take that £1 million lump sum right now. Thank you very much.
But the big giant stockbroker never actually gave him that option. He was just like, I'm going to be selling you £200 a week for some reason.
Yeah.
Don't put it in your wall. Don't put it in your wall.
They've severely missed out because £200 would be a really, really, really small percentage of whatever the share was worth. Well, I suppose the walls weren't big enough for that £1 million.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem.
Maybe stockbroker knew what they were going to do and was like, I can't send them £1 million. They'll never get in the walls.
And if they do, there'll be no room for a Squowse in there anymore. And that's going to really get in the way of the story of this book.
That is one dead Squowse, yeah.
Anyway, they decide they've got enough money in their walls because they've never actually spent any of it. It's like, it doesn't really matter that we're not getting money anymore because we've never spent any of it. And what we're basically now, I don't have to go to the bank every week, cash a check, and you don't have to stuff it in the wall. So it's saving us some time, to be honest.
They're going to be like, well, I suppose it's time to start taking it out of the wall. Okay. Well, where's all our money gone? What's all this Squowse shit?
Fortunately, they don't decide that it's time to start taking out and spending it. They decide it's time to die.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Please tell your son where the money is.
They don't do that. They are happy. They've got enough money. They've bled their son dry while sticking their own absolute fortune into the walls. And they're like, well, do you know what we should do now? Now we're not getting any more money. Let's just die without telling him anything. So Henrietta and Humphrey walked into their front room and sat down on their sofa, holding hands, as they had done for so many, many years. They were content, and they were very old. They closed their eyes, knowing that their time had come, They died peacefully and blissfully, their hands still clasped together. Synchronized dying. Like, how did they do that? Unless there was a gas leak or something, right?
Well, you know how, like, in the past, like, for, like, TVs and, like, well, we still have it now for electricity meters and everything, you have to put money in. And if you don't put money in, it goes down and then it runs out. Maybe they were charged similarly, and they're putting the money in the wall because that's how they kept alive. But when they stopped putting money in the wall, their batteries run down and they just died.
Maybe that explanation. Maybe that. Anyway, when Richard heard of his parents' death, he felt very sorry. But he knew they had lived a long and secure life. He knew that their time had come and that they had died peacefully and securely, which was all they'd ever wanted out of life. All they'd ever wanted out of life was to die. That's what that line says.
Did he not go like, if I was him, I'd be like, wait, they both died at the same time? That sounds a bit suspicious. Then I'd find the letter from the stockbroker saying £200 a week, and then I would be, where's the money? It's not in the bank. Someone must have stolen it.
I wonder if they were putting it in the wall, and that was what was keeping them alive, like one of those old electricity meters. And because this is their last check, their batteries ran down, and then they died together. I wonder if is that a possible explanation? Howard, do you think that's reasonable?
Sounds right. Sounds about right. Yeah.
It said anyway. The last line of this chapter is he never knew about the money, and even if he had, it wouldn't have mattered to him by then.
Because
he's married the daughter of the people who had it all, and they've used it to make more money instead of just sticking it in their fucking walls.
Yeah, he did better.
He did, actually.
Yeah. They understood what to do with money, which is not to stick it in walls.
Yeah. This is one of your favourite stories, right? Or as a kid, this was one of your favourite stories.
Yeah.
Willie the Squowse. You used to read this like twice a day.
At least.
As we know from your diary, read Willie the Squowse today and then read it again. It was good.
Yeah. Went bad.
But I'll tell you what one of my favourite stories is. Mm-hmm. It's called Greta Binchleaf and the Adventure of the Massive Jumping Hairy Pig.
Wow. Yeah.
Book 11 of the Binchleaf saga.
Gosh.
And if our listeners wanted to listen to that, they could do that because it is finished. And now you can get all the episodes in 2 ways.
Okay.
Number 1, you can go to patreon.com/manbycow/collections and just buy it. That's the Pillock's way of doing things.
Do that.
Right? But you can do that. Or you can go to patreon.com/manbycow and join the secret gang. At this point, get that book for $7.
Gosh.
And loads of other stuff too. Join for $7, get the whole back catalogue of Secret Gang podcasts, at least one other about 4 other Greta Binchleaf books. You can get loads.
Brilliant.
Or you can join for $12 and get all the Greta Binchleaf and all that other stuff as well. You can get almost everything we've ever recorded for $12. Or you can buy it for something like $10. And get nothing else.
Please do that. Please do that.
And of course, by supporting the show, you give us the money to buy food to keep ourselves alive and keep making shows like this one, where we talk about old children's books that no one's ever read. All right, let's get back to the story, shall we, Howard?
Yes, please.
Chapter 12. Willie the Squowse has no food because the Pickerings have died, and so they're not going to the shop and buying nuts and cheese with their son's money anymore. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, when the Smith family do their weird chair and cheese ritual every day...
Still doing it, yeah.
He can't resist the cheese smell because he's starving. And then he's bunging up the hole 2 notes a day for whatever reason, and then the notes run out. He runs out of notes to block the hole with. No more notes, and no more notes being put in by the Pickerings, right?
Wait a second. How long after is this then? Because if they were getting £200 a week, and the rich and the Scum family are only taking out £140 a week, that's £60 going spare for the period of 5 years. Yeah,
it should be a while, right?
She shouldn't have run out of money yet.
But it does seem to be very quick because it's long enough for him to be alive. Yeah. Long enough for him not to have died of starvation. He's not getting food from anywhere else.
It would be longer than a year, though, really.
Yeah, so I think maybe Ted Allen didn't do the sums.
I think he ate the Pickerings, like they never come and took their bodies away, so he's just been eating their corpses.
Well, the first line of chapter 12 is, when Henrietta and Humphrey Pickering were laid in their final resting places, Willie found himself without food. So I guess their final resting places, that was Willie's stomach. So basically what that means is, when he finished eating them, he found himself without food.
Yeah, even at their skeletons, because he heard this great podcast. You were so confused then. You were like, what great podcast? Oh, you mean ours. So you think this podcast is so bad you were confused.
Wait a minute. You've heard a great podcast. I'd like to hear that too. Because every podcast I've ever listened to is fucking terrible. Anyway, so Willie can't resist when the Smiths put the cheese down, so he dashes out to get the cheese. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Smith sees this, surprised, like she's expecting money, and a Squowse runs out instead, so she panics and breaks the chair. And she thinks the chair is what makes the magic work.
Yeah.
So, of course, after that, the magic doesn't work anymore.
Right. Did she try and beat the Squowse to death or anything?
No, she's too surprised by it. She's
average
surprised.
lifespan of a Squowse? Can we find that out on Wikipedia?
It's more than 5 years. Well, let's find out. I mean, squirrels.
What about a squirrel and a mouse?
Right? Let's check. Let's check what we've got, and we'll multiply them.
Well, no, I think it's probably going to be less, isn't it? Because this is some it shouldn't have happened.
This isn't. This is the past, isn't it? So it's probably red squirrel.
Oh, yeah.
Red squirrels live for 3 years on average, although they've been known to live up to 10 years in safe enclosures. And he is in a safe enclosure.
Okay, so
up to 10 years. And, hang on, mouse. No, they don't live very long, right?
No, because we just treading on them, don't we?
House mouse. If living outdoors, a house mouse lifespan will generally be up to 1 year, but indoors, a house mouse can live for up to 3 years.
Okay. From 10 and 3, so the medium, like 7.5 years for a Squowse.
Yeah. So Willie's pretty old. Anyway, so the Smiths realise that they're not getting any money anymore because they broke their chair and now the magic doesn't work. Yeah. And so Mrs. Smith says, "We've been getting it now for 5 years. Perhaps it's someone else's turn." Mm-hmm. "I suppose that's right," said Mr. Smith. "Besides, we don't need it anymore. The properties we now own make us 100 times more money than we'll ever need."
Wow.
And so the Smiths moved. They began another life in a new neighbourhood, and before long, Mr. Smith ran for Parliament and was elected. That's the end of the chapter, because he's rich and he's awful, and so he's perfect to be a British politician.
Yeah.
Anyway, then we have the final chapter, chapter 13. Willie leaves. He realises he's got to go. He's got to leave this house and find some food, I guess. Because now he's surrounded by empty houses.
Yeah.
And someone's going to knock the house down as well. So he'd start to leave because someone's going to knock the house down.
Oh, fuck. Right.
Yeah.
Which one? Both of them?
It just says the Smith house. Ted Allen does not know how houses work. All right, this is one thing. He may know a lot about Squowse, but he does not know how houses work.
No.
So Willie leaves.
Okay.
And immediately finds Joe outside because Joe's living on the street on the off chance that Willie turns up. He literally says, "I just gone hung out where I last saw you, just in case you might be here."
All right.
Joe says, "I know now. I'll never be happy unless you're with me," said Joe. "Do you feel the same, Will?" Willie jumped a backflip and did 3 somersaults to show Joe how pleased he was.
Wow, geriatric Squowse there.
Yeah.
How's he doing that?
Joe laughed and Willie jumped into his pocket. Then Joe walked proudly down the street, and the bells were ringing happy sounds, and both Willie and Joe knew that from that day on, they would live happily ever after.
Yeah.
The end.
2 years for one of them.
Both of them. Joe's been drinking heavily. So what do you think? What's the moral of the story? Because it's so confused to me. Like, what is... I can't get my head around the moral of that story.
I just don't think there is a moral. I think that Ted Allen's the kind of writer that I was, and he didn't think about what any of it meant. He just was trying to tell a compelling story about a man and his Squowse.
Yeah, and if you get money, the best thing you can do so it doesn't corrupt you is to stick it in your wall. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Worst Writer in the World. If you would like more, or to listen to Grapman's Tip for the Adventure of the Massive Jumping Hairy Pig, then go to patreon.com/manbitecow. Bye-bye milk.
Bye, man.
Worst writer in the world. Worst writer in the world. Worst writer in the world. Worst writer in the world.
So what is a squouse, Howard?
Part Squowse. Wait, shall we try that again? I mean, 100% Squowse, in fact. But that's which part of the Squowse is. But also...
Good answer. Good answer.
Also...
Thanks for enlightening us, Howard. You're so useful.
He's a stupid, suck-ass, rubbish writer.